All right, let's jump right in. We're heading back to Victorian London for a story about a summer so unbelievably foul, so disgusting, that it actually brought the most powerful city in the world to a complete standstill. This isn't just a story about a bad smell, it's the story of how that smell saved a city. This is the story of the Great Stink.
And believe me, this was no exaggeration. You know, the brilliant scientist Michael Faraday put it pretty bluntly himself. Back in 1855, he was so appalled by the state of the River Thames, he started doing this little experiment, dropping white cards into the water just to see how quickly they'd disappear. His conclusion was grim. The river wasn't really a river anymore. It was, for all practical purposes, an open sewer.
Fast forward just 3 years from Faraday's letter, and that simmering pot of filth just boiled over. In the summer of 1858, a stench rose from the Thames that was so powerful it basically smothered the entire city. And when I say powerful, I mean it. This wasn't just a hold-your-nose situation, it was an all-out crisis. They called it the Great Stink, and it would change London forever.
So you have to be asking, how on earth did things get this bad? Well, this disaster didn't just happen overnight. It was the horrifying climax of decades of neglect, runaway growth, and some really, really bad ideas.
The final straw? A monster heat wave. In June of 1858, the temperatures soared. We're talking a staggering 48 degrees Celsius, or 118 Fahrenheit in the sun. This heat literally cooked the tons of raw sewage and industrial waste that lined the banks of the Thames. The result was a smell on a scale that you and I just can't even begin to imagine.
And who better to describe this nightmare than Charles Dickens himself? He knew London's gritty side better than anyone. He called the river a deadly sewer. And check out this description from one of his letters. He said the smells were of a most head and stomach distending nature. Wow. You can almost feel that, can't you?
And this is where it gets kind of crazy. The stench was so powerful, it wafted right into the Houses of Parliament. Picture this, the most powerful politicians in the empire running for cover, holding handkerchiefs to their faces. They even soaked the curtains in chemical to try to block out the smell. It didn't work, of course. Think about that. The government of the biggest empire on earth was being defeated by a smell. But here's the thing. It wasn't just about the stink. To them, that smell meant death was in the air. Literally. To really get why they were so terrified, we have to look at the perfect storm that created the crisis and the flawed science they were working with at the time. It was just a recipe for total disaster. First, London's population tripled, going from 1 million to 3 million people. Then, you get the invention of the flushing toilet. Sounds like progress, right? Nope, it was a disaster, pouring even more waste into the city's ancient, crumbling sewer system. And the final destination for all of it? Yep, straight into the River Thames.
And the consequences were absolutely deadly. Just look at these numbers. These aren't just statistics. These are people. Before the Great Stink, London had already been torn apart by 3 horrific cholera epidemics. This disease was terrifying. It was swift, it was brutal, and tens of thousands were dead. And nobody knew how to stop it.
And the reason they were so lost was something called the miasma theory. Basically, everyone, including the top scientists, believed that diseases like cholera were spread by bad air. They thought the foul smells themselves were the poison. So when the Great Stink hit, people weren't just disgusted, they were genuinely terrified they were breathing in death itself.
So you've got this major clash of ideas. On one hand, you have the establishment, totally convinced the bad air is the killer. But here's the tragic part. A brilliant doctor named John Snow had already figured it out. 4 years earlier, he traced a cholera outbreak to a single contaminated water pump, proving the disease was in the water. But hardly anyone listened. They were just so fixated on the smell.
Okay, so the city is in a total panic, thinking the very air is poison. The stage is set for a hero to step in, and one did. But his brilliant ideas got stuck in a bureaucratic nightmare for years.
And here he is, our hero, Joseph Bazalgette. This guy was a brilliant, hard-working engineer who gets this new job as chief engineer for the city. His mission, basically, was to solve London's gigantic sewage problem. And he didn't just have a quick fix in mind. He had a truly revolutionary plan.
But his plan just sat there, collecting dust. For 2 whole years, Parliament just couldn't make a decision. They argued about the cost, even though his plan was way cheaper.
They argued endlessly about where the pipe should go. All the while, his genius solution was just trapped in political gridlock as the city got sicker.
So what finally broke the logjam? What finally forced them to act? The stink itself. That's right, the unbearable, politically powerful stench from the summer of 1858 became the ultimate motivator. You can just feel the desperation in this quote from Benjamin Disraeli, who was the finance minister at the time. He called the river a Stygian pool. That's a direct reference to the river of death from Greek mythology. When the politicians literally couldn't stand the smell in their own workplace anymore, well, that's when things finally started to happen.
And boy, did things happen fast. After years of doing nothing, they rushed a bill through Parliament in just 18 days. They basically gave Bazalgette a blank check for £3 million, an absolutely staggering amount of money back then. The message was loud and clear. Just fix it.
Isn't that incredible? In the end, the smell succeeded, where years of reports, expert commissions, and even thousands of deaths had failed. It had forced the government's hand. And now, Joseph Bazalgette was finally free to build his masterpiece.
So what exactly was this master plan? Well, we're not talking about just laying a few new pipes here. This was a system so revolutionary, it became the blueprint for modern cities all over the world.
All right, so here's the genius of it. He built these massive interceptor sewers. Think of them as super highways for sewage that ran parallel to the river. They were designed to catch all the waste before it ever hit the Thames. And for the most part, it all just flowed downhill, thanks to a very precise, gentle slope. And for the tricky, low-lying parts of the city, he built huge, powerful steam-powered pumping stations to give the sewage a lift. It was just a beautifully simple, elegant system.
The sheer scale of this is just hard to wrap your head around. We're talking 318 million bricks. But Bazalgette was also a stickler for quality. He insisted on using a brand new, super strong type of cement, and he tested every single batch to make sure it was perfect. This was basically one of the first times anyone had used modern quality control on a major project. The guy was way ahead of his time.
Get this, they didn't just make it functional, they made it beautiful. The pumping stations weren't just ugly concrete blocks. No, they were designed to look like cathedrals with incredible ornate ironwork inside. They were literally nicknamed the cathedrals of sewage. How amazing is that? Taking something so foul and turning it into a work of art.
So once this incredible system was finally finished, what was the real legacy? Well, it was about a lot more than just getting rid of a bad smell. It quite literally gave birth to the modern city of London.
The impact was immediate and it was dramatic. First, cholera? Gone. It just vanished. And here's the great irony. Bazalgette accidentally solved the cholera problem. He still believed in the bad air theory, but by cleaning the water, he fixed the real problem. The city was finally safe to grow. And as a bonus, they built the famous London embankments on top of the sewers, creating new roads and parks. And maybe the most incredible fact of all, his original system is still the backbone of London's sewers today, over 150 years later.
So, in the end, what's the takeaway? As one historian put it, Joseph Bazalgette deserves to be remembered alongside London's all-time greats, like the famous architect who rebuilt the city after the Great Fire. He didn't just build sewers, he saved lives, and he made the modern city of London possible.
It's a pretty powerful story, right? A world-changing legacy, all born from a terrible, terrible smell. And it really makes you think, doesn't it? What are the hidden, essential systems that we all rely on every single day? What unseen engineering marvels are keeping your city alive right now? If you thought this story was as fascinating as I did, you should definitely check out our Unusual History Events playlist for more just like it. And of course, if you want more deep dives like this one, go ahead and subscribe to Notebook Summaries. We'd love to have you. Thanks for watching.